Hi guys, and welcome to another lecture of human physiology. We're going to be looking at chapter 1 today within your textbook. I'm going to go ahead and transition to my PowerPoint slide here. So when we look at it, right, we're talking about our online textbook. Remember, it's the OpenStack. Along with that, you needed to download the lecture notes for today. They were found within the module of this video link. So as we move along here, first thing I want you to understand is when we talk about human physiology, we're talking about the function of how things work, right? But we got to kind of understand how your body's organized within there. Your body's made up of living things called cells. You have trillions of those within your body. We all started out as one cell, but we have multiplied into trillions by now. And we also have non-living stuff within your body, like water and salts and other chemicals found within your body that make it work within this physiology. All right. As far as water, we are really like sponges, a lot like SpongeBob, as I like to put it. Our body typically is anywhere from about 55 to upwards to 75% water by mass, so that makes up a large percentage of that. But the water within your body is no different than the water within your Avion bottle or your Sparklets within there, as long as we're talking about pure water. So as we move on here, those first, as you can see within the slide, these first things are going to be the elements that make up your body. Of the elements that make up your body, almost all of your body is composed of just a handful of elements, 4 to be exact. So over 96-97% of you is made up of 4 elements: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, right? And we also have lots and lots of other elements within your body, but in very small amounts. And those would be things like trace elements and salts, electrolytes within there. If we take 2 or more elements and put them together, we get molecules, as we remember from chemistry. So things like that water molecule, H2O, within there. And we have small molecules like oxygen gas, which are diatomic, to extremely large molecules like proteins that can be made up of hundreds of different elements, or hundreds of elements linked together within there. When we get to this level, now we're talking about the cellular level. When we get to the cellular level, we are looking at now living organisms, right? There are organisms out there in the world that are unicellular, and they are only one cell big, and that makes up their entire organism. We, on the other hand, as humans, and most living, right, things that you know of within the world, are multicellular. As I stated earlier, we're made up of trillions of cells at this point within there. And those cells have, right, all the same DNA in them. It doesn't matter if I take a cell out of your skin or out of your liver or out of your bone, it's going to have the same DNA, okay, within there. If I take a group of cells now and put them together with a common goal, right, a common physiology function, I make up tissues. So tissues, there are lots of different tissues within the body. We will look at 4 major categories of tissue and why those exist within there, right? What's their anatomy and physiology? If I take tissues now and lump them together with a common, once again, physiology, I'm going to make an organ. So things like your bladder, right, is an organ. It's made up of different tissue, both epithelial, muscular, and connective tissue. And then if I take multiple organs with a common physiology, I get an organ system. And then if I take all those organ systems within your body, we get you, the organism. So that's a quick overview of that hierarchy, right? On the basic level, we are all made up of atoms. Everything on Earth is made up of atoms within there. What makes us different than the rock out there is we are also made up of cells. So now we're going to look at some of the body functions within, or the systems within your body. Just a quick little overview. So the first one I want to talk about is the integumentary system. The integumentary system is that system of skin and associated structures of the skin. So things like glands and nails, the hair on your skin, right, would all fall under that integumentary system. And as we can see with this picture on the left, right, he's holding his skin there. That is an actual human being, a dead person. This is from the exhibit Body Worlds. And that integumentary system is that good barrier that surrounds your body and keeps the stuff that's supposed to be inside your body there, and the stuff outside in the environment that wants to get into your body, especially bacteria and viruses and things like that that want to harm you, from getting in. So that's a quick overview of the integumentary system. Now the muscular system. When we look at the muscular system within there, the muscular system is made up of 3 different types of muscles: skeletal, right, cardiac, and smooth. Typically when we talk about the muscular system, we're talking about skeletal muscle. They make up most of the mass of your body. This system, the muscular system, is all about movement of some sort. So each one of those 3 types of muscle, smooth, cardiac, and skeletal, all cause movement within there. If it's cardiac muscle, right, it's causing movement of blood throughout your circulatory system. If it's smooth muscle, it may be movement of, as we stated before when we talked about the bladder, right, of urine out of the bladder when we go to the bathroom, right? If it's skeletal muscle, it's our bones causing them to move and us to do some sort of task like walking, sitting, standing, jumping, all those types of things. Now your next system we're going to look at here, all right, is the skeletal system. So the skeletal system, right, is made up of your bones. It is there for 2-fold purposes. One is protection. So things like your skull and your rib cage help protect internal organs and structures. And then also for movement. So things like our limbs, our arms and leg bones and hand bones and fingers are all there for movement. Right? Nervous system is our 4th system here, and that is comprised of your brain, spinal cord, and all the nerves that go out and branch out into the body, as you can see in this picture on the left. Once again, this is of a human, of the nervous system. So we see the brain at the top and the spinal cord going down and nerves coming out of that. The nervous system is all about communication. So that homeostasis, remember the video that you watched on homeostasis, remember those receptors and control center were all part of the nervous system. Right? Our 5th one is the endocrine system. The endocrine system is made up of glands that, for the most part, produce hormones. They produce other chemicals within the body that typically work within homeostasis. If you remember back from that lecture, right? The endocrine system, along with the skeletal, or along with the muscular system, are the ones that are the effectors of that homeostatic mechanisms that keep you in balance within the body. All right, our next system is our cardiovascular system. Our cardiovascular system is made up of, right, our heart, our blood vessels, and the blood that pumps through them. Its job is 2-fold. Number 1 is to bring waste, or to remove waste from the cells of your body and to bring nutrients to those cells. It's also has a function of your immune system. So when we look at certain blood vessel or blood cells within there, we'll talk a little bit about that. But the whole thing of this system is to right, get that blood to circulate through all parts of your body so all cells can have use of it. Next one is going to be your lymphatic system. Your lymphatic system, once again, works kind of hand in hand with your cardiovascular system. As from the picture there, you can see it looks like a whole bunch of vessels out there, and they kind of follow along with the blood vessels. Their job is twofold. Number one is to keep that water. Remember, we said we are anywhere from 55 to 75% water, to keep that water evenly dispersed around your body. And number two is they are also part of your immune system. So this is the part of the immune system that is dealing with viruses and antigens and antibodies. So when we look at COVID-19, we're talking about this part of your system that's coming into play and helping you get over that. Right? Next system is your respiratory system. Respiratory system is made up of your lungs and the passageways that go from your lungs to the outside of your body, so your nose and your mouth within there. The whole system of the respiratory system is going to be to bring oxygen into your body and to remove carbon dioxide. Excuse me. Next one we're going to look at is our our respiratory system, and then our digestive system. So our digestive system is looking at our stomach, our intestines, and other associated structures within there, like your liver and gallbladder would all be part of that, right? And your mouth and teeth and esophagus, connecting those to your stomach, are all part of your digestive system. Digestive system is there to, once again, remove the nutrients from the food you take in and bring those into your cardiovascular system, into your bloodstream, so it can be dispersed to your cells. All right? And also within there gets rid of some of the waste products, right, within there. Next is urinary system. So our urinary system, once again, is another filtering system made of kidney and bladder. And its job is to, once again, very important in homeostasis, to maintain a balance, to get rid of the waste that's inside the liquid part of your body, within your bloodstream, and to put back those things that you need. So kidneys will remove water at the very beginning, but then before they send that urine down to your bladder, they reabsorb a lot of that water back within the body, so we don't get dehydrated. And last system is the reproductive system. So the reproductive system is, right, its function is all about procreation, right, about having babies, making sure that the human race does not stop here on planet Earth. So we will look at that briefly this year as well. So those are an overview of our systems within there. Once again, we kind of alluded back when we were looking at that levels of organization of how we all started out as just one cell, right? And now as we sit here watching this lecture, we are trillions of cells large within there because they multiplied over and over and over again. So as those cells start to go from the original single cell into what's called a blastocyst, which is a ball of cells. It doesn't look like a human on that, right? If we look at those first cells, right, you would be outside of looking at the DNA, but just looking at it under a microscope, real hard to distinguish that from any other type of person, right, within the human race or any other living structure, right? Your dog, your cat, a bird, things like that. Those first developing cells look very similar. And then those cells start to what we call differentiate. So they start to make some distinct types of cells. And those first things that our body goes through in that embryological stage is what's called gastrulation, which just basically means that that ball of cells, right, within here starts to develop into three distinct layers, all right? And those layers are called ectoderm, right, as we see here, mesoderm, and endoderm. They kind of get their name because of how they stack up within that embryological human being that's growing inside the female body. So your ectoderm, right, as the name kind of implies, ecto means outside. That's your outer layer of your body. So your integumentary system would come from your ectoderm, the skin and nails. It also, your nervous system comes from that ectoderm layer. So your brain and spinal cord and nerves. Mesoderm, right? Meso means middle. That's that middle layer. And the majority of that makes up is your muscular and skeletal system, right? The heart being part of the muscular system, remember, fits in within this layer. And then the innermost layer called the endoderm, right? Endo means inside. This makes up the majority of our digestive system and respiratory system fall within the endoderm layer. So these layers, right, within here are going to make those structures that you have now sitting within our lecture today. Now when we look at tissues, we talked briefly, right? Remember we said tissues are made up of cells with a common physiology. And we can lump all the tissues within your body into four major categories. And we need to go back and talk a little bit about tissues because tissues are made up of both living and non-living stuff. So the cells within the tissue are obviously the living part of tissue, right? The things like the water dispersed in between these cells and proteins and fibers and other chemicals would make up the non-living stuff. All right, so here we can see there's lots of space, right, in between these cells. This non-living stuff is known as extracellular matrix, or more commonly abbreviated as ECM, right? And once again, since it's non-living stuff, it's molecules, it does not matter, you'll see on some videos I'm going to have you watch this week, it does not matter where those molecules come from, right? Water in your body looks no different, right, than water in your Evian water bottle. H2O is H2O, right? And our two types of, on the upper up here, of our four types of tissue, connective tissue and epithelial tissue, have a different appearance to them, a different anatomy. So when we look at connective tissue, what I want you to understand is it's made up of cells, right, and ECM, but it has a lot of ECM. So typically a higher ratio of ECM than compared to the cells. So there's lots of space in between the cells of extracellular matrix, and connective tissue is the most abundant type of tissue within your body and also the most diverse type of tissue within your body. And I'll give you two opposite examples to show you how diverse this can be. Is blood is actually connective tissue. Right? We typically don't think of blood as a tissue since it's a liquid, right? But it's made up of living cells, and that liquid part in between the cells, right, is the ECM. And that ECM in blood is mostly water, but there are proteins within there and other chemicals and electrolytes that make up that ECM. Bone, on the other hand, once again is connective tissue, right? And bone has living cells in it. Your bones are alive. They grow and are constantly changing. But the stuff in between the cells, unlike blood, where it was water, a liquid environment, is its hard crystal salts. Things like calcium chloride and phosphate salts within there. They make hard crystals and make your bone hard like concrete. So, but the anatomy is they have a lot more ECM than they do cells. Just the ECM can look very different depending what kind of connective tissue we're looking at. The next type of tissue is epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue, as we can see here, these are all cells. You're going, wow, there's no ECM, right? I don't see any space in between the cells, which is true in epithelial tissue. They're densely packed and the cells are touching each other in how they're structured within there. But once again, just because these cells are touching one another, there still is space in between, right? If you are sitting here watching this lecture and your dog jumps up onto your lap, right? He's touching you, but there still is space in between you and your dog, right? The two of you haven't morphed into one. It's just that space is extremely small, right? It's hard to, right, get in between there as opposed to if your dog was sitting on the opposite end of the couch or somewhere else in the house, there'd be lots of space in between the two of you. Because of this configuration, right, if we look at this, right, there's no space in between the cells. It's very densely packed, and it's very good at making barriers. So epithelial tissue is known for making barriers. So it's found in both coverings and linings of your body. So your skin is epithelial tissue, right? It's a very good barrier so things don't leak out of your body or get into your body to make you sick. It also makes up lining, so the inside of your mouth, the inside of your stomach, the inside of your digestive tract, the inside of your bladder, once again, is epithelial tissue because we need another barrier there, right, to prevent that stuff and only letting certain things pass through. The last two types of tissue, muscle and nervous tissue, aren't really based on that ECM to cell ratio. They're based more on the function of the tissue itself. So when we look at muscular tissue is made up of both, or all three of skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, and smooth muscle. All right, they do look different histology-wise if we look at them under the microscope, but they all have a common function. As we had stated earlier within the muscular system, their common function is movement, and the reason why these have their own tissue type is the muscle cells can actually change shape. That's what causes movement. So they're able to contract on there, and when they contract, they actually get smaller, right? Which if I contract my bicep, the bicep gets smaller and it makes my elbow flex and my arm move. The last type of tissue here we're going to talk about is nervous tissue. So nervous tissue is made up of two major types of cells within there, and that's neurons and then neuroglia. And they both have their own different functions, and we're going to come back to that in just a minute. But now as we look, right, epithelial tissue, we said, made really good barriers. It's going to look like, right, within there, very little ECM and lots of cells, so many cells, right, that they're touching each other within there. We're not going to go, this is not a histology class, we're not going to go into all the different types of epithelial tissue. You may have done that in anatomy if you remember back. But when we talk about epithelial tissue, we look at two different things within there, and that is the shape of the cells and how many layers it is. And obviously different cell shapes are going to have different functions, right? Something like this that's multiple layers with different shapes of cells is very thick and hard to get through, right? As opposed to something like this that's only one layer thick and very flat looking, right? A little easier to get through, not as great of a barrier. This is actually skin, right? This would be something like your blood vessels, right? Where we want stuff to get in and out very easily as far as nutrients. Right? As we stated before, our next type of tissue, our other type of tissue is connective tissue. And in that case, right, we can see here some different types is all these little purple are the blood cells, and the white is the ECM. So there's lots of space in between. Once again, here we're looking at bone. So these black little ovals are cells, right? And all this other beige looking stuff in between is ECM. And here's adipose tissue. Adipose tissue also falls under connective tissue. Adipose is your fat. Okay? So these are fat cells. These big white things are the fat vacuole with inside the cell that's filled with the fat molecule. Right, here we are with, once again, another type of connective tissue. We can see a cell here, another cell, but we've got lots of, right, purple space in between. These wavy squiggly lines are fibers within there, which are made out of protein. And this is what makes your tendons and ligaments. They're very strong within there. Right, muscle tissue, as we stated before, skeletal, smooth, and cardiac. Its job is all about movement within there. And right, the muscle tissue can be controlled by the autonomic nervous system, right, which is that system of you not having to consciously think about it, that unconscious part. So smooth and cardiac muscle, right, contract unconsciously to you. You don't have to tell your heart to beat or your stomach, right, to digest your food, right? But you do need to tell skeletal muscles what to do, right? It may not be a, hey, bicep contract right now, right? But if I go to open a door, right, I am telling that bicep to contract because that was, right, a conscious thought that I wanted to open the door and go through that door. And lastly was nervous tissue, as I stated before. It's made up of two types of cells, neurons and neuroglia cells. Neurons are the guys that kind of do the work. They have their own tissue right here, nervous tissue, because neurons are the only cells in your body that are capable of producing electricity. All right, they produce nervous electricity. Right now, as you're watching this lecture, there is electricity zigzagging all throughout your brain and throughout your body along nerves. You don't feel like you're being electrocuted because it's in millivolts, which is a thousandth of a volt. But if we hooked electrodes, right, a voltmeter up to your nerve, we could actually see the voltage going through that nerve, just like if we hooked it up to your extension cord powering your computer right now. There's electricity running through that, and a voltmeter would show that. It would just show different, obviously a lot more voltage going to your computer, right, than zipping around your body. And then we have this whole other group of cells within nervous tissue called neuroglia, and their job, we have a lot more neuroglia cells than we do neurons, and their job basically is to keep the environment healthy for neurons to be able to work, right? So I like to say that neuroglia cells keep neurons healthy and happy, okay? So they can do their job. And that's it for our lecture today. I'm going to go ahead and transition back to myself here. So welcome. We will have another lecture, look for it this week, continuing on, talking a little bit more about the chemistry of your body and those functions within there. If you have any, don't understand any part of this lecture, what I recommend is to go back to your textbook and look over those passages within chapter 1. If you're still unsure about specific stuff that I talked about, you can always reach out to me through email and we can talk more through Zoom or chat through email within there. So hope this has been informative, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.